Webinar. Start the webinar in just a few seconds. We're waiting for one panelist to join, and a lot of the attendees are in the process of joining. Okay, it's 2 minutes after, so we're going to go ahead and start up. Thank you all for joining to this webinar on the causes and solutions to indoor smoke from wood and pellet stoves. We're focused exclusively on indoor smoke. We all know outdoor smoke is also an issue, and we'll get to that at a later webinar. Darren, could you switch slides? Yes, just a few housekeeping notes. So we're just going to use the Q&A function instead of the chat. So if you have comments or questions, just use the Q&A function. We find that's a little simpler. And if you have you can put a question in at any time. We'll be getting to the questions in at the end, and indicate if there's a certain speaker you want to address it to. Just note that. And afterwards, of course, you'll all get a link with a slide deck and the video recording. Next slide. Hey, a little bit about Alliance for Green Heat. We are a 4-person nonprofit. Our staff is the top row of the pictures, and you'll be hearing from 3 of us today. We're based in Maryland. We've been around since 2009. We support all forms of low carbon heating, heat pumps, geothermal. Our expertise is in wood stoves and pellet stoves. And we very much support pellet stoves. And wood stoves, we wish a lot of people would switch from wood stoves, but wood stoves are vital for millions of people, and they can be very appropriate in rural areas if they're burned well. Our majority funding comes from USDA now to support a firewood bank program. Previously, it was DOE, Osprey Foundation, and NYSERDA. Next slide. Okay, so I'm going to just a few notes as we begin. And I admit that this is a little bit of a focus on my own experience. And that is my stove in the picture in the lower left. And you can see it's right here behind me with all the air quality monitors on top. But a few overarching points. First of all, we want to make the point that people really need to take indoor air pollution seriously. Trust your nose. Your nose is actually a very fine instrument. I recognize that any form of smoke is bad, wherever it comes from, and no matter whether you like the smell or not. A lot of people like the smell of wood and of dinner time. That's even a better smell. But if it's smoke, it's not good for you. And the other point I want to make is you can almost always reduce smoke in your home, even if you can't totally eliminate the cause. Eliminating the cause, of course, is the best. But no matter what, we really urge people to work on the problem, whether it's through a filter or other methods. Another point we want to make here is don't assume your wood or pellet stove is the main cause of air pollution in your home. There are a lot of causes of air pollution. Some folks, especially with pellet stoves, including my own, it's not a major source, although it is a source. And last point is that we are really urging everyone on this webinar, if you are in the hearth industry or air quality community, and you have a wood stove or pellet stove or fireplace, we really urge you to get one of these low-cost sensors and try it out. There's nothing like hands-on experience. It gives you a lot more authority to talk about it. And when you have that personal data, it impacts the way you think about it. It impacts your decisions. So I have 3 here, and I want to just show you very briefly. They're all, let's see, they're 0.2, 0.1. So that is very good air quality. That's pretty much the air quality I have without my stove going. My stove is my primary heater. And all three of these monitors, I think, are excellent. I think they all do the job, and they all pretty much confirm that their readings are accurate. They all have some strengths and weaknesses. They all cost about $50. They can all text you. If you have a smoke event, they will text you wherever you are. They can wake you up at night, or one of them. And two of them do overall air quality score. Okay, next slide. So I wanted to show you, this is yesterday in my house, and I just wanted to walk through why I find this really helpful. Now, the first block is the average air quality overall score. So this first block, it says 62, which means it wasn't so good, but that includes PM, it includes VOCs, it includes CO and other stuff. So it's a conglomerate. And you can see the first 6 bars, that's nighttime, up until 7 a.m. when I turn my pellet stove on. My pellet stove, I believe has a defective design. Anyway, it does give a puff of air, of smoke into the room. And then it went back to green. And then we had our biweekly house cleaning in the afternoon. And you can see on the second slide, that caused a lot of PM from the vacuuming, even more PM than my wood stove light off. In the evening, we cooked dinner, we baked something. It was, and again, it caused bad air quality, but it wasn't the PM. As you can see on the second chart, there's no jump in PM during dinner time. Now, the third slide, that's VOCs, volatile organic, okay, thank you, Darian, volatile organic compounds. Pellet stove released some. The house cleaning released a lot, and that is, it could be toxins in the cleaners. It could be any number of things. But my gas stove also released a lot. So there's no PM impact there, but there were VOCs. So it's a great learning experience. I really encourage everyone to do this yourself if you want to be an expert in this arena. Get involved personally. Next slide. Okay, so we have 4 wonderful panelists, and I'm going to let them each introduce themselves when they start. But they all have a different expertise, and I think it's going to be really, they complement each other well. Next slide. Okay, so first up is Mansell. Mansell, are you ready?
I am here and I am ready. Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right, and I'm going to need somebody on that end to drive my slides because I'm not at my computer. I'm here in Las Vegas doing a training. And anyway, all right, thank you. So home heating, more than just staying warm. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. When we think about air quality, I think we also need to think about how our lungs work, and the realization that what is in our air very directly gets deep into our body. And our body does have some defenses against PM and other things, but pretty minimal. That air gets deep into our body, goes through the bronchial tubes into the alveoli where the air exchange occurs, and air pollutants can also get into our bloodstream that way as well. Next slide, please. And this affects not only our lungs, but the rest of our body because it's getting into the airstream. And that's one of the things that on the medical side, we've become more and more aware of is that it's not just respiratory issues, it's heart issues, it's strokes, a lot of other health outcomes resulting from poor air quality. Next slide, please. And particularly, we want to protect the lungs of our young people. This is my granddaughter about 10 years ago. But exposures and damages that we do to the lung children can result in asthma, result in other respiratory issues, more frequent lung infections, And all of these things can last for a lifetime. Next slide, please. Next slide. So when we're talking about fire, we need a couple different things. So we've got to have oxygen, heat, and fuel, and how those combine can also result in more pollutants. Next slide, please. And this is just looking at a couple of different chemical reactions. I'm a chemist, I can't resist, sorry, for those of you that aren't comfortable with those. But the key message here is that when you starve the fire by restricting oxygen, you create some side reactions that actually are enhanced, including the production of carbon monoxide, a poisonous gas, and carbon, which is also known as soot. So if we're not providing everything our combustion needs, we actually get increased pollutants. Next slide, please. And this is just showing the same reaction, but with wood. Next slide, please. Next slide. So one of the gases I mentioned is carbon monoxide, a poisonous gas. You can't see it or smell it. Of course, typically when you have carbon monoxide, you've got other pollutants that you are seeing and smelling, but often, sometimes not. And a little bit of carbon monoxide is produced anytime you're doing combustion. And then depending on that fire triangle and the mixture of oxygen, fuel, and heat, determines how much carbon monoxide you end up with. And of course, we hope that it's escaping through a flue, a chimney, but that's not always the case. The next slide, please. And carbon monoxide works by attacking or attaching to the red blood cells and excluding oxygen. So basically, you're drowning. You don't have any oxygen, or you have reduced oxygen. And of course, our body does not function well with reduced oxygen. So we can create an issue. Next slide, please. And I definitely advocate a carbon monoxide alarm, but the second statement there, I would really encourage you to think about. The alarm protects life, not health. So there's built-in delays in responding, et cetera. So I'd really encourage you to be thoughtful about how you're using your carbon monoxide alarm and how you're depending on it. But I do prefer the carbon monoxide alarms with the screen that will give you a reading. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So one of the other pollutants commonly from combustion is particulate matter. The size of the particulate matter matters. And this is a picture that EPA published. And when we're talking about PM10, we're talking about the blue marbles. When we're talking about PM 2.5, we're talking about the red marbles. Next slide, please. And of course, we've already been talking about the health effects, but there's also visibility effects, how it affects. And here in Arizona, for example, or actually I'm in Nevada, but in Arizona, they have the Grand Canyon. And that wouldn't be much to see if it was one of those smoky, hazy days. Next slide, please. And of course, there's a lot of other sources of PM. So just as John pointed out in his short description of what he's been measuring, there's other things that will register as PM. So it's not going to be enough to just take measurements. You're also going to need to make observations like what's going on? Are you cleaning? Are you cooking? Are you recharging your wood stove? All of these activities and more will affect your readings. And that's an important part of understanding the readings that you're getting. Next slide, please. Just more sources of PM. Of course, we've been seeing a lot of wildfire. Next slide, please. So as John already mentioned, there's lots of different ways that we can measure the PM. I think one of the instruments he was showing was a temp top. This one is also a purple air, which can be used inside and outside. These are best generally for PM, and they do a fairly good job, although they're not regulatory. So anybody that's concerned about that will hopefully clearly understand that the purple air is not a regulatory device, neither the temp top, but they can provide us very useful information. Next slide, please. And then there's a lot of different ways to look at the responses. This is a EPA scale called the AQI. Many of the instruments do attempt to translate the data you're collecting to AQI, but there's also the consumer low-cost sensors use a lot of different scales. I like this one because it's used by EPA. It's commonly used in communications about air quality. And so I recommend as often as you can to refer to and use the AQI because it's a pretty useful scale and it gives you some information. And of course, it's color coded and it's just like you would expect. Green is pretty good, yellow is less, orange is less, and red is getting pretty bad. By the time you get down to purple, you've really got bad air. Thanks. Next slide. So I think I've pretty much covered, but additional benefits of measuring PM is warning for wildfire impacts. And of course, recognizing that when you're measuring PM, there can be lots of sources. It might not be your wood stove. It might be your neighbor's wood stove, or it could be somebody running a four-wheeler around your the dirt around your house, causing a plume of dust. Next slide, please. There are some numbers. We don't really have numbers for indoor air, but there are some numbers that EPA recommends for outdoor air. So I kind of tend to refer to those. But it's we don't have specific regulatory guidelines for this. Next slide, please. Next slide. A temp top and then just another device. There's lots of devices that will measure PM, and of course, to some extent, you get what you pay for. These low-cost sensors, I think, are really useful for comparison, for understanding our indoor air. But again, if they don't agree with what's going on in the regulatory world or what EPA is reporting, then that's not a surprise. Next slide, please. Next slide. So there's a number of interventions, and other presenters throughout this webinar will be referring to those. So I'm just listing a variety of interventions that we want people to consider to recommend. A low-cost approach we always recommend is best burn practices. Even a new stove, if you're not using best burn practices, can be harmful to your home. I had a friend that was burning waxed cardboard in his brand new wood stove, EPA certified, catalytic converter. And within a month, it was causing all kinds of problems. And it took me coming in to even point it out to him. He didn't realize he was filling his house up with smoke. Wood stove changeouts is a common approach, but you got to have good education, good installation, good operation for those to result in lower levels of pollution. Filtration units is a strategy I personally use, and I think one of our other presenters will spend a little bit of time on that. But I think that's an important use. Quick start, that's a best burn practice. Wood banks would be another. And then, of course, with the low-cost sensors and CO alarms, I would recommend in most cases people consider some kind of monitoring, because it's going to help you understand what's happening, and that you might want to do additional interventions such as ventilation, which isn't on this list. Next slide, please. Next slide. I believe Eileen's going to talk about air cleaners. So next slide. And there's my contact information. I work at the Institute for Tribal Environmental Professionals, and I manage our indoor air quality along with some other programs. But specifically for tribal communities, feel free to reach out to me. Probably the best way is via that email that's listed there. I'm available to tribal communities to help with technical assistance. We do trainings. In fact, I'm here in Las Vegas doing a training this week, and we'll be doing about 3/4 of a day on indoor quality issues. I just had the participants identify their issues in their community, and over half talked about wood stoves, wood burning, and then others talked about wildfire smoke. So we know these are key issues in the communities. So I'm not sure, I don't have it in front of me who's next, but
Okay,
hopefully you guys know that.
Yep.
But thank you for the chance to talk, and I'm glad to hear from anybody if I can be of any assistance.
Well, thank you, Mansell. That was a great overview, and I really appreciate getting to know you. So next, we're going to have Hannah Stinson from Alliance for Green Heat staff. This is a bit of a PSA for some other work we're doing, which very much has a lot of ramifications for indoor air. So Hannah, if you want to pull up your slides. And then this is a shorter presentation, and then we're going to get to our next panelist. Hannah?
Sorry about that wait. My computer did a little freeze, but I'm here now. And thank you everyone for joining. I'm just here to talk about the Firewood Community Safety Initiative that we launched in October, which also is part of the Wood Education Resource Center grant from the US Forest Service. And the goal of that initiative was to have firewood banks and firewood communities adopt best practices when using firewood to heat their homes. So similar to how Mansell's presentation touched on all the sources of smoke and particulate matter pollution, we've invited participants to join us for the safety initiative and have had 16 participants sign on. They're all following actions listed here that include distributing EPA burn-wise materials to all firewood recipients, providing and installing 10-year smoke detectors to wood-burning households, inviting and using and learning from indoor air quality monitors measuring PM 2.5 pollution occurring inside of their home, and monitoring wood moisture to ensure that firewood is properly seasoned before being distributed. They're also looking at growing trained workforces in chimney maintenance and inspection industries to reduce harm from wood stoves inside the home. And we're just trying to continue emphasizing that ash can be removed from your stove, how to burn your fire at the proper temperatures between 300 and 650 degrees, and how to store your firewood the best way, encouraging drying and seasoning with the split stack store cover approach. We're excited now.
Hey, Hannah, I don't think your slides are sharing. Can you try to restart your sharing real quick?
Yes, I can. I'm sorry about that. I can also, since we have a smaller window, I'll jump to this one and see if that works better. How about now? Oh, no, it still says.
Yeah, nothing on the screen yet, Hannah.
Oh, Okay, well,
Has Mansell stopped screen sharing?
I think so. I should be the only presenter. And
Yeah,
Hannah,
I
would you
wasn't-
like me
sorry,
to share
audience.
your,
I wasn't screen sharing, so
Hannah, would you like
someone
me to
else is
share
doing it
your
for me.
slides from Canva?
That might be the best option, Darian, and you can pause on either go to the last one or the middle one, but I'm just going to keep introducing the citizen science opportunity too while you get there, because this message is supposed to be kept short, so sorry, audience. And essentially, our opportunity to join us in monitoring your indoor air quality will involve the TempTop air monitor, which I have next to me right here, monitoring my own air. And basically, we invite everyone to use it to engage with it and record their readings that they experience when heating with wood in their home, and also share that information collected by the monitor with us to keep and learn from. We're hoping to compile the data to paint a better picture as to what wood-heated homes look like and experience when they either suffer from indoor air pollution or don't, because the misconception is sometimes that they are always experiencing indoor air pollution. Your role as a participant will be to use the monitor to engage with the monitor, and also sharing pictures of your stoves, feedback onto how you liked the monitor and whether it changed your behavior. And if you would like to participate in that and receive a air quality monitor, please put your information, email. It would just go to us panelists in the chat, and I'll collect those and contact you afterwards. And next slide. Lastly, we are doing a mug giveaway today. So every attendant on, if you stay on till the end of our speakers, we will randomly select from the list of attendants to receive one of these awesome mugs. So if that doesn't keep you, I don't know what will. And your amazing panelists are up next. But first, before Bob, we're going to do a quick poll. So this question is really just to see where everyone's joining us from, and I'm starting it now. So please answer if you can.
Thank you, Hannah. And just before, I should say, I think we have 10 of these air quality monitors, so we might not be able to send them to everyone, but let us know if you want one. The idea is you'll keep it for 3 or 4 days and send it back. And we'll keep them in circulation all winter. Okay, so Bob Ferrari, we are so lucky to have him. You know, Bob is the guy, or the type of guy, that you should call if you have wood smoke problems from your wood stove, because they really, sweeps are one of the very first lines of defense, because they know how to figure out what's going on. So, Bob?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Is my screen sharing?
It is
Not yet.
not.
It's not. Great. Okay. Now I don't know how to get out of my screen here.
Darian can share it for you.
Yes.
Okay, let me get to that real quick.
In the meantime, I'll just we'll end the poll and share the results. So majority of people we have on are a local, state, or federal agency, and then a lot of folks from tribes and tribal governments. It's great. Next, manufacturers and homeowners. Okay, thank you.
All right, we're ready.
Yep.
All right, this is going through what you do if you smell smoke. Next slide. So a lot of people think they like the smell of a campfire, and they go, I love the smell of smoke. You're not supposed to love it, especially if it's in your house or if it's coming out of your chimney. Something's wrong. And as Mantle said, you're breathing carbon monoxide every time you smell smoke. Next. So you have to ask questions. People assume that because their stove is smoking, that it needs cleaning, but it's not the case. And you have to begin to ask questions to figure out why it's actually smoking. We would get calls, you just cleaned my chimney and it's still smoking. And we didn't know it was smoking beforehand. We ended up testing the houses on every house that we walked into for air pressure to see if that was the problem. And it was quite often. Next. So the first question is, when does it happen? Does it happen all of the time? Does it happen when you're just at startup? Does it happen when the wind's blowing from a certain direction, such as especially along the coast? It goes one way in the morning, one way in the evening. Below high mountains, it does that. Out in the desert. But sometimes a storm just comes in from one direction. Does it happen in the middle of the night? Do you smell odor in the summer? When does it happen? Next. If it's all the time, then the next question is, did it used to work properly? Next. If the answer to that is yes, then when did it change? Was it kind of suddenly, little by little, you don't always tell, but suddenly your spark arrestor plugs up at the chimney cap and it immediately begins smoking every time, all the time, or whenever you open the door. Could be after somebody went in the attic and kicked a air duct loose, or maybe you've just had your house weatherized and tightened it up and there's not as much air leaking into it as there was, and now the stove doesn't work. Or my kid came home from college, but it could be anybody moved in and now maybe they're sleeping upstairs and they opened the window to keep it cooler and now the fireplace or stove smokes. Or there's an extra person taking a shower and running an exhaust fan all the time. So when did it change is a key question. Next. Other reasons, if your spark arrestor's plugged up, and you should be able to find a place in your yard where you can look up at it and see the sky through to the other side. If it's plugged up, that's a symptom. That is not a cure. Just by cleaning it. You can get by for a while by clinking at it with a pellet gun to knock enough stuff off. So the smoke will still come out, but it always means the chimney is now really dirty and the whole system needs to be cleaned. But the problem is shutting down the air is usually the first problem. Overfilling the wood stove with wood so that the fuel and air can't mix together well. Or having wet or unseasoned wood. Next. So those are the user errors that take place. That's the loose nut at the end of the stove door handle. Next. So if the answer is no, it never worked correctly, then we're going to look at the installation or when it was built. It never worked correctly, so that can be a flue sizing issue. It could be too big, too small. Too short. Maybe not only was it misinstalled, but maybe damaged parts were put in. It could be house pressure. Hot air rises, cold air sinks. If the hot air in the house is rising and goes through leaks in the upper part of the house, it can win over the chimney, or turning on exhaust fans over the kitchen cook area or in the bathrooms or laundry rooms. Clothes dryers, they all suck air out of the house and they compete with that air for the chimney. A lot of Arizona and places like up where I live, they're swamp coolers. They have an 18-inch duct. It's always going to win over a small wood stove exhaust. Next. If it smokes when you're starting the fire, the chimney can be filled up with cold air, and cold air is heavier than warm air. And so you have to get that cold air plug out of there by preheating the chimney. Sometimes you can stuff a little piece of newspaper in and light it and get it going. Sometimes a hair dryer or something like that will work. Some people use a little propane torch, but you can preheat the flue and that will get it started instead of spilling out at the very beginning. Next. It happens when the wind blows. It could be that the chimney is not quite high enough. If you think of wind as a river of water and it's hitting rocks or it's hitting obstacles and it swirls all around it, there's eddies. It's invisible, so we can only see the effects of wind, but it could be that the chimney is not high enough above the roof. It could be that it used to work and now it doesn't, that the trees in the area grew up and now they're redirecting the wind where it didn't used to go. And by thinning the trees out, sometimes the air will move through it more easily and it will not affect the chimney as much. It could be new construction. Somebody built a big house next door, and now the wind comes around that house and goes down your chimney. And the only thing you can do there is ask the neighbor to move and tear their house down, which doesn't usually go over well. Next. In the middle of the night, people will call us and say, 2 a.m, my smoke alarm went off. It scared the heck out of us. The house smelled like smoke. Well, the fire burnt down, the furnace kicked on, there was an imbalance in the HVAC system, and it sucked the smoke out of the stove or fireplace. Everybody shut their bedroom doors for privacy in the night, and the air couldn't return to the air conditioning system, and the house became imbalanced, and it caused the fireplace to smoke. There are ways to solve that. I'm not going to go into that here. But and we teach that from the National Chimney Sweep Guild, things that have to do with air pressure. Next. And it's the same thing. An odor in the summer, people will call and say, I can smell, it smells like charcoal, and I think it needs cleaning. Well, it might need cleaning, but that's not why there's odor in your house from it. It means air's coming down through the chimney, picking up the odor, and then coming into the house. So you have a flow reversal. There's an imbalance of air pressure, and that needs to be resolved. It's not necessarily the stove or the fireplace that's causing that. Exhaust fans will always win over natural convection. So somebody can come in and test that. That's what a professional chimney sweep will do. Next. And that's it for me. I am flying through this. So you have plenty of time for questions. We at the National Chimney Sweep Guild have developed virtual reality training. If you're in a tribal area or have a community that's kind of closed, and I know a lot of people are low income and can't afford for somebody to come out, but maybe somebody can be trained within that community. We can provide training. We have it in virtual reality, which is where you put on the headset and walk through a house and inspect and even to measure house pressure and learn about that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob. Very informative. And I really encourage everyone, when you hire a sweep, it is good to make sure that they are certified by Bob's group, National Chimney Guild, or CSIA, National Chimney Association. I think I got those almost right. Anyway, those certifications do mean something. Doesn't mean your sweep isn't good, but there are a lot of fly-by-night sweeps, and you do want a good one. You want a guy who's been in the industry for a while, who's had some good training. So do look for that. Okay. Next, we have Eileen Gagney and Hannah. Can you pull up the next poll? And while Hannah does that,
Sure can. This
Eileen.
next question is going to ask about wooden pellet stoves. So
yeah, so this one, yeah. And Eileen works for a fabulous organization, Tribal Healthy Homes Network, run by an extraordinary woman, Gillian Middlestat. And I actually met both Eileen and Mansell at the Tribal Air Quality Conference in North Carolina. And she is one of the nation's foremost proponents of making very inexpensive air quality air filtration systems. So go ahead, Eileen.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen, and good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are. Let's see. Share slideshow from the beginning. Okay. Can you see my slide?
Mhm.
Great. Okay, lovely. So, when you're done with, would you like me to wait till the poll is over?
Yeah, go ahead, Hannah, and close that poll and share the result before we get started.
All right, so it looks like most here haven't lived with a wood stove, but the next leading answer, oh, it said it failed to share.
Oh,
What?
bummer.
Well, everyone, we have next best guess was for poor draft that they believe wood smoke leaking into your home from a wood or pellet stove was experienced. And poor draft was the number one answer. Smoke leaked during refueling when door was open was the number two answer. And stove was old or uncertified was tied with pellet stove leaked during smoke or during or after startup.
Okay, so thank you. And since I shared, I think I probably made it so that you couldn't share. So we can go back to that afterwards if you're done. Well, in any case, hi everyone. My name's Eileen Gagney. I am the technical advisor and trainer for Tribal Healthy Homes Network. And just to give you a little bit of background, I've been working in homes for about 40 plus years to make them healthy for people. And it includes everything from indoor air, outdoor air, mold and moisture, toxicology, you name it, I can talk about it. So today I'm going to talk about the impact of wood smoke on human health and also low cost filtration solutions that are available for folks. Just a little bit more background about me. I have asthma and I'm chemically sensitive, and wood smoke is my biggest trigger. I can no longer go camping because folks in the morning when they wake up, they love to start their fire and that smoke just hangs there and I can't breathe. So I leave or don't go anymore. So unfortunately, it does have some unpleasant side effects, as some of you already know. So this particular slide talks about Washington State. Nearly half of all households have wood burning stoves, inserts, or fireplaces. And I think this is probably true for most of the country. There is a long history of burning wood, both mostly for heat, but also for other things as well. It is one of the main sources of pollution in many areas in the winter. And unfortunately, wood smoke pollution indoors can reach up to 70% of outdoor levels, even in homes that don't burn wood. And that mainly comes from infiltration from outside. So if you have a leaky house, it has not been weatherized, insulated, and upgraded, you're getting a lot of these fine particulates and everything else that's in wood smoke. So the dangers of wood smoke are many. And right here in this slide, we're going to talk about the chemicals. So there's benzene, acrylane, dioxins, arsenic, formaldehyde. The number of compounds just in toxic gases are 4, and that's carbon monoxide, ammonia, nitrogen dioxide, sulfur dioxide. There are also PAHs, also known as polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, which are not only carcinogenic, mutagenic, and immunotoxic, so they can actually change the DNA in your system. And you've got free radicals, inorganic compounds, fine particulate matter, which is also what we're going to talk a little bit more about, and benzene, styrene, all sorts of nasty chemicals. I know for a lot of folks, they love the smell of fire. I actually do too, wood smoke in certain situations. However, it is incredibly dangerous. So in terms of particles, it's these tiny, tiny particles that are our biggest concern, because they are inhaled way down deep into the lungs where they can become lodged. They bypass our natural defense system, meaning our nose cilia and our nose hairs and our cilia in our lungs and in our trachea, and they go way, 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 way down, and they can actually cross right directly into the bloodstream. So they can cause structural damage. Chemical changes to the lung tissue can actually alter your DNA. And because of that, what they would smoke is really sticky. And what it does is it makes your blood sticky. So it can actually lead to heart attacks and strokes even days after you've been exposed. So the relative size of particles, and Mansell showed on one slide of this. I like this one because it really shows you from beach sand down to white blood cells to grain of pollen to a dust particle. Look at that. So that dust particle is PM10. But if you continue down, you've also got a dust particle at PM 2.5, and PM stands for particle matter. And if you continue down, there's wildfire smoke at 0.4 to 0.7 microns. These are the particles that are so small, they can persist in the air for several days, even months, and they behave like a gas where they just kind of float. So as you saw one of these before with Mansell, so what happens is that these small particles, they actually you inhale them through your nose or your mouth. They get past your trachea, they get down into your lungs, way down into the bronchial to the alveoli, whereas that gas exchange happens between oxygen and carbon dioxide. And these particles are so small that they can carry other particles with them that then, once they're in the bloodstream, can alter and change and go to other systems, your heart, your kidneys, your spleen, your brain, and cause all sorts of damage there. So, and for short-term effects, the fine particles, so you're talking 2.5, headaches, irritated eyes and sinuses, and I'm sure most everybody here has experienced this, being downwind as a little campfire changes direction and hits you right in the face. You get irritated throat, coughing, you can have difficulty breathing. For long-term effects, stroke, lung cancer, COPD, respiratory infections, and heart disease. And then the health risk factors, which is something also we don't really talk about, but it's really important, is to talk about both the susceptibility and the vulnerability. So who are susceptible? Well, women over men, children. Children before the age of 7 have no blood-brain barrier. So everything that they inhale, get into their skin, or eat goes directly to their developing brain. Age, lifestyle, are you older? Are you geriatric as myself? My immune system is much more compromised than someone in their 20s, right? Are there any underlying health conditions, diabetes, risk of heart failure, heart disease? Then where are you located? What is your vulnerability, your proximity, frequency, and duration, magnitude of smoke exposure? Have you been exposed to smoke from, as a small child through your adult life into your 60s, 70s, 80s, and beyond? Is there any filtration? Have you been able, your home, to been able to filter the smoke and these particles and chemicals out of the air? And then on top of that, what kind of occupation did you have? Were you working outside during the wildfire smoke event? Were you a chimney sweep? Were you anything that could be exposed to smoke or particles for an extended period of time? Then, so you've got effective and affordable, reliable heating, all these things, but filtration, all of these things are not just mechanical systems. They end up being life-saving medication for vulnerable members of our community, and actually for everyone. So indoor air filters, do they work? Yes, and they work fabulously. So this is from the Puget Sound Clean Air Agency. I worked with this group about 15 years ago developing these filter fans because they got a grant. They had money to hand out about, maybe 12 air cleaners, HEPA air cleaners to their community. I'm like, there's a lot more people there that could use this. So did some research and I said, well, there was a professor out of Minnesota who had thought about this years ago. And I brought this back out and I said, this could work out great. So we created these do-it-yourself filter fan workshops where there you see somebody drilling. We had little brackets that would hold the filter on. That's unnecessary at this point. Painter's tape works great. But what we found out is this. So on the left, you see that during a construction event, you can use it inside to clean the air of dust because you know what happens with drywall dust or wood smoke, right? On the right, that comes from my home after 3 days during a wildfire event. So that's how filthy the air was in my home that do-it-yourself filter fan was able to clean for me. So what I'm going to show you now is how to build your own filter fan.
Hi, everyone. My name's Eileen Gagney, and I'm the Technical Advisor and Trainer for Tribal Healthy Homes Network. Today, I'm going to demonstrate how to build your own filter fan. During wildfire smoke season, this is one of the best things you can do and least expensive things you can do to really help clear your home full of wildfire smoke. Very inexpensive to build. What you need is a box fan, 20-inch by 20-inch box fan. It has to be newer than 2011. And you need at least one, hopefully two, 20-inch by 20-inch by 1-inch furnace filters. Now, the reason why I like two is this. When you start using this in your home for wildfire smoke or dust, whatever, when you go to change, oh, I wonder how dirty it is, and you take it off and, oh, it doesn't look so bad, till you compare it to a new one. And all of a sudden you realize, oh my gosh, I need to change the filter. So what we're going to do is I'm going to demonstrate, first of all, how to take off the plastic that's on the filter. And it is crucial that you install the filter in the right direction. So what you'll find on these filters is there's an arrow pointing. So you want to have this arrow pointing in the direction of the way when you turn the fan on, it pulls the filter to the fan, such as this. So it's not coming off. It's going in here, and what's going to do is clean the air that's coming through and pushing cleaner air out. To secure it, so when you turn it off, it doesn't fall down. You take some tape or a bungee cord or whatever you happen to have, and you secure the filter to the box fan. And that's it. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact us at www.thhnw.org. Thank you.
Whoops, sorry. Oops. There we go. So I apologize for the weak volume on that. There's lots of videos out there. There's a picture on the left of a do-it-yourself filter fan. There's lots of instructional videos available right there. The one on the right you see was developed by the Colville Nation, and it uses a triangular piece, so you actually get two filters going. So what they're deciding here is that one filter is good, two is better. And then the next time you get the Corsi, Campero, and Rosenthal do-it-yourself air purifier, which actually uses 4 filters. And
Eileen,
so,
I'll remind you your time's coming to a close.
okay, so there's your 4. And then another thing that they've just figured out is that if you put a cardboard shroud on the top, you can increase the efficiency by 9 to 20% of a collection of the particles in your home. So here's a series of all sorts of different ones. This last one, number F, is just the ones with the feet. Nobody's ever going to build that, but you know, if you want to get it off the ground, it's fabulous. So this organization has come up with all the evidence on the effectiveness and considerations. And then the EPA has guides for air cleaners in the home. And then there's all sorts of other effective tools. You have a chimney thermometer, you have a moisture meter. And what I've included here are videos from our kits that actually put these together. So we have the Air Matters toolkits, which is about healthy housing and tools that you can help detect, monitor, and reduce exposure. And then the Smoke Matters toolkit is specifically for wildfire smoke. But as I want to make clear, and as we're finishing up here, is that these filter fans can be used in the winter with your wood stove, and would really help to keep your particulates and particulates down, not so much the chemicals, which takes a different kind of filter. Anyway, thank you so much, and I will turn it over.
Yeah, thank you, Eileen. That was great. I should, Hannah, when you pull up I think it's our last poll, I would just like to say for most of us, including myself, we, you just go out and buy a filter. They can be a couple $100, but they're well worth it. And Consumer Reports does an excellent job in testing them for their effectiveness. So I would urge folks, I mean, if you can't afford to buy one, absolutely build one. They do work. And it's really one of the best lines of defense if you are experiencing wood smoke.
There's also another corporate wire cutter, which is made from the New York Times. They review air cleaners as well. And that's actually where I would go for a HEPA or a high, MERV 13, MERV 16 air cleaner if you really want to buy one. They're relatively inexpensive, but those furnace filters, the best, you buy the best one you can at about $20. Most people have a box fan. So for $20, you get an air cleaner. Works great.
All right, thanks, Eileen.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's see. Thank you all for participating in this last poll, and we're about to hear from Ken Davis. We're lucky to have him. He is a very experienced stove designer, and he's going to tell us how they build stoves that will minimize leakage, and how the EPA requires them to be tested to show. So Hannah, why don't you end that poll and announce the results, and then we'll move to Ken.
Okay, so this one was a little fun because it asked two of the same questions, but one regarding pellet stoves and one regarding wood stoves. The question was, do you think smoke leaking into the home from a wood stove is from one of these problems? The top answer for pellet was the problem occurs 25 to 50% of homes with a pellet stove. Second top answer is it's a widespread problem that occurs with the majority of stoves. Down to the next question asking about, oh, I switched them around. Sorry. The next question asking about pellet stoves has a little different answer. So much less people thought it was a widespread problem in homes that lived with pellet stoves, only 10%. And the top answer for pellet stoves was actually it impacts less than 25% of homes. So that first question, the top answer was it occurs in most homes with a wood stove, or 25 to 50% of homes with a wood stove. Thank you for answering.
Okay, thanks. On to Ken, our final speaker, and then we're going to open up to Q&A after that.
Thanks,
Ken,
John. Hope you can all hear me here. I'll just share the screen. Hey, you can all see that?
No, we can't see it.
No.
No, hold on a sec here. I apologize. There we go. How's that?
Not quite yet. Oh, there you go. There it is. Just make
There it is. Okay.
Presenter mode.
You bet. Yeah, I'll just go back and do that right now. How's that?
Perfect.
Awesome. Okay. Thanks again, John. Welcome, everyone. My name is Ken Davis. I've been a wood designer for 15 years. I'm designing and certifying over 25 combustion systems in that time. My work has been focusing on reducing emissions, improving performance, and addressing challenges like indoor smoke and air quality. Today, I'll share some insights into wood stove design, the complexity of combustion, and practical solutions for tackling the issue of indoor smoke. My goal is to provide both an understanding and actionable solutions. And I'll go on to the next slide here. Indoor smoke occurs when the combustion process is disrupted. This could be due to poor airflow, leaky seals, or outdated stove designs that don't address modern air quality needs. Outdated models lack secondary combustion systems and are often less airtight, leading to smoke rollout. However, smoke issues also stem from user behaviors like burning wet or unseasoned wood, overloading the stove, or frequent door openings. These external factors contribute to combustion challenges. We as designers follow the rule of the 3 T's. That's time, temperature, and turbulence to ensure complete combustion. Time is referring to ensuring that gases stay in the combustion zone long enough to burn completely. Temperature is about retaining heat to sustain combustion, while turbulence ensures that air and fuel are mixed effectively for a clean burn. Modern designs focus on creating longer pathways for gases, maintaining consistent temperatures, and introducing air at key points to ensure thorough mixing. Next slide here. The combustion is a very complex dynamic process. It begins with an endothermic phase. During this phase, wet or cold wood is absorbing the heat, slowing ignition. This is why using dry, seasoned wood is critical. During this phase, the chimney isn't being heated properly, reducing draft and allowing smoke to linger. To minimize this, we focus on controlling heat loss. Overloading the stove, burning wet wood, or opening the door too often allows valuable heat and unburnt byproducts to escape, disrupting the balance. Improperly managing the door or air controls during the startup phase can rob the system of heat, leading to incomplete combustion and smoke rollout. Modern stoves are designed to overcome this phase quickly with airtight seals, optimized air delivery, and advanced air mixing. For instance, a well-designed secondary combustion system uses preheated air to ignite gases, stabilizing the system faster and reducing visible smoke. These features help transition the system to the exothermic phase, where the fire generates enough heat to sustain itself and the chimney, creating an efficient smoke-free system. In the exothermic phase, heat is released, fueling combustion and stabilizing the draft, making the system more efficient. I'll go on to the next slide. Modern wood stoves are designed with advanced systems to prevent smoke rollout. Airflow systems are engineered to optimize draft and combustion efficiency, even in challenging conditions. Airtight seals keep heat within the stove, minimizing energy loss and improving performance. Secondary and tertiary combustion systems ensure complete burning of gases and particulates, drastically reducing emissions. Every design undergoes rigorous real-world testing to ensure consistent performance under diverse conditions. As an example, this slide includes a typical EPA certification testing setup, which is used to measure emissions and verify compliance with regulatory standards. The testing process uses tools like dilution tunnels, like dilution tunnels and particulate filters and emission monitoring systems to capture and analyze smoke and particulate matter. This rigorous testing ensures that wood stoves meet strict air quality regulations and help identify areas for design improvements to prevent issues like smoke rollout. By understanding how these tests are conducted, we gain insight into the performance and reliability of stoves in the real world use. These tests aren't just about meeting regulations. They ensure that the stoves homeowners purchase is safe, reliable, and effective at reducing emissions under real world conditions. Sorry. Fortunately, I don't have 2 screens today, so I had to print it off. Next slide is diagnosing indoor smoke issues requires a systematic approach. Common signs include dirty glass, weak draft, or visible smoke spilling out the door when it's open. These are clues that point to specific problems. Dirty glass could mean the air wash system isn't working effectively, or as designed, the wood is too wet, impacting draft and combustion, or there is a leak in a door seal affecting airflow. A weak draft may also result from a clogged chimney, a dislodged or damaged air delivery system, a firebox breach, poor welds, or improper chimney installation. The issue may lie in the stove's design, a chimney draft issue, or external factors like wet fuel or improper operation. All or even one of these factors could be impacting the stove's performance, which is why addressing these systematically is key to resolving this issue. Excellent. Included some practical solutions to help with this issue. For homeowners, tackling indoor smoke often starts with small but impactful changes. Upgrading to a modern EPA certified stove can drastically improve performance and emissions. Using dry seasoned wood is essential to reduce moisture content and improve combustion. Starting fires with the top-down method heats the system and creates strong draft early on. Regular maintenance, like inspecting gaskets and cleaning chimneys, ensures the system stays efficient and safe. Starting fires with the top-down method not only heats the stove faster, but also promotes proper airflow, preventing smoke rollout. Regular chimney inspections help maintain draft, ensuring efficient operation. I kind of mentioned the startup of it as it's critical on the top-down method. I'm hoping you can see from the picture there is we're trying to heat up the top system, really get this draft going is the goal. Next one. Before I'm wrapping up here, I just thought of some common questions that kind of I've had through the years. One is, why does stoves sometimes smoke out the door, which is what we're talking about today, of course. This usually happens due to airflow disruptions or improper operation. Modern stoves are designed to mitigate this through advanced airflow and sealing systems. The stove, including the chimney, fuel, user, and environment, are all part of this system. Issues like smoke rollout are a symptom of a breach within this system. Second question is, do expensive stoves perform better? While both high and low cost stoves can meet emission standards, higher end models often include advanced features like better airflow systems, catalytic technologies, and even electronic systems for enhanced reliability. This is not to say that the price of a wood heater reflects its performance. It is just one of many metrics we can use to determine its performance. Price is one factor, but it's important to evaluate features like combustion systems, efficiency ratings, and ease of maintenance to choose the best stove for your needs. Customers should look at all aspects of the product before purchasing and talk to their dealer about appropriate sizing and features. Ultimately, choosing a stove is about finding the right fit for your specific needs, balancing performance, price, and features. What's the role of a modern design in reducing emissions? Modern stove designs prioritize combustion efficiency with secondary and tertiary air systems, tighter seals, and innovative materials to drastically reduce emissions. New technologies to achieve more reliable and cleaner wood heaters are also being explored. How can users identify if their stove is outdated or inefficient? The first indication is to ensure that your product meets the regulatory requirements by reading the rating label or tags affixed to the wood heater. Key performance signs include frequent smoke spillage, sooty glass, and difficulty maintaining a draft. Following manufacturer's recommendations for when to replace items like door gaskets, secondary air tubes, catalysts, and other replaceable items is essential for continued performance of your appliance. Upgrading to an EPA certified model can also significantly improve both efficiency and air quality. These are just a few of the questions I commonly hear. If you have others, I'd love to discuss them during the Q&A. Your input helps us understand the challenges users face and refine our designs further. And our last slide. Thank you for your time today. I hope this presentation has provided insight into the complexities of wood combustion and the solutions modern designs offer to address indoor smoke. If you have any further questions or would like to discuss a specific topic in more detail, I'd be happy to connect. I appreciate your attention and engagement, and thank you all. I do appreciate it.
All right, thank you, Ken. That was, I do appreciate you coming on. A lot of folks in stove manufacturing world who don't want to speak to the public about work on. And I think we may have one more poll, and we're going to choose someone to get a mug, and then we will open up to questions. And I'm going to turn it over to Darian Dyer, who will moderate Q&A. Darian, as you see, I've answered a few questions.
Yeah,
in
you've
the-
answered them all, John, but I'll re-ask them to the panelists in case.
Feel free to, yeah, go ahead and answer. Ask some of the panelists to answer them because they may have a different answer.
Of course. And I'll give it a minute maybe for people to get their answers in for this last poll. And we've already, Hannah, I don't know if you want to jump on and announce the mug winner. While Ken was presenting, I did a random number generator and counted down the participant list. And so the lucky winner is
Christy
Drum roll, please.
Lawson. Christy Lawson, if you're still on this webinar, you get this awesome mug that promotes the helping hands that help make firewood banks possible. Let us know if you're here and we'll send it your way. And it might be good to close the poll now. So for this last question, why do you think indoor wood smoke often goes unaddressed? Choose as many as you'd like. We did have the most answers going to the first answer. People underestimate the health effects, which I definitely agree with. Runner up to that was people can't afford to diagnose and fix the problem, which was tied with it's hard to know where and why the smoke is leaking. And the last selection was the smoke produced is minimal. And thank you for participating.
And I will say, Christy, if you'll put your email into the Q&A, we can grab your email and then we'll discuss how to get that mug to you. And so let's get started on the Q&A. I'm going to go back through the ones that John has already kind of typed out an answer to that other people might be interested in answering. And this might be a good one for Ken, maybe even Bob, on the pros and cons of catalytic versus non-cat stoves. Using less or more wood associated with emissions, et cetera, et cetera. If you have an opinion on the pros and cons of those.
Yeah, I'm okay. I can answer it, or Bob, or I'm either one of us, both of us. From my kind of perspective is that there's definitely pros and cons, obviously, to both. Outside of cost and complexity to use it, but catalyst, a good designed wood stove with or without a catalyst, and that's easy to operate is kind of the goal. But catalyst, they've proven themselves to really can help clean up the environment, and there's a lot of advancement here. I'm kind of lean towards the hybrid. I think there's value in both. And it's kind of I know it's like the question of which one is better, and that's kind of the debate amongst the community. And they both are valid and good solutions. Looking for the newer ones, you'll notice a lot more hybrid solutions, and this is helps with the bypass operations, and it helps with a lot of other aspects as well as cost. And I don't know if Bob wants to add in, kind of in the field where usage.
Yeah, out in the field, catalysts wear out, and people don't always know when that has happened. And they plug up, and they can be poisoned, and there's all kinds of problems with them that a typical homeowner doesn't often even know about. So if they're operated correctly and they come up to temperature and they're kept, the fuel is the right fuel, I think I agree as far as the hybrid goes. I think that's the best solution there is out there. But a lot of people with catalysts have 15-year-old stoves, and they're not the same as the current ones. So I'd rather see for people to have a simpler, user-friendly product more than a catalyst.
Great.
Yeah,
And
I agree.
Eileen, okay. And Eileen, you might be able to help us here. So people were asking, how exactly do these air quality monitors calculate AQI? If you have an idea about that, and then also what it means for the VOCs, the VOCs. Can you explain those a little bit more?
So I don't know. I'm not a epidemiologist or a real scientist in that way. I don't know how they work. Some filters will actually have charcoal or VOC components that can be added to it that will pick up the gases. Some of them are charcoal, most of them are. And then for some air cleaners themselves, you can upgrade to an allergy one, a wildfire smoke one, or just a plain old, carbon filter. But the carbon tends to pick up the VOCs, which are volatile organic compounds. So that's the stuff that you smell, the gases that are created by burning wood, or actually by a lot of things in your home, like your hairspray or whatever you spray or cook. There's a lot of VOCs. So I'm sorry, I don't understand. I do not know. I don't have the science behind the air meters and how they work.
And we lost Mansell, who would be probably right there with us, the chemist. He would have helped us out on that one as well.
Oh, you're frozen.
How does it work? Does it have multiple grades, tiers to it? Does anyone want to explain that?
We lost the first part of your question, Darian, because you were frozen. So
what's the name of the EPA's certification program for wood stoves, and how do are there tiers involved? Let's jump on that one. Maybe.
Is for wood stoves, or what are you?
Wood stoves.
What's the name of the certification program?
Yep.
Well, it's under the NSPS. It's the New Source Performance Standards, which is the law that allows EPA to regulate wood stoves. And basically, all wood stoves have to send their stoves to one of like 9 approved labs, and then that lab sends the paperwork back to the EPA, and then the EPA approves it. I don't think there's any particular name other than that, but the EPA does maintain a list, and it's easy to find. Just type list of certified wood stoves, and you can find every stove on the market and see the efficiency and the emissions. Doesn't have reliability. There's a lot of information which is not on that list, but you could at least get some of the basics.
Great. And then someone asked, what makes pellet stoves generally burn more efficiently or cleanly compared to wood stoves?
Bob, you take that.
Right. Well, they have metered air and fuel, so they're more closely matched, and turbulence that's introduced within the stove gives you a better fuel air mix, so they burn cleaner. They've got, well, you don't always know with all pellets, but if you get a high quality pellet, it's going to tell you the ash content, the mineral content, the BTU values will be a consistent size and shape. So that's why. Whereas wood, you're putting in random species and sizes and moisture content. So it's not quite the same.
Ken, do you have anything to add to that one?
If I can jump in there, and for
Okay, sure.
anyone who doesn't know, one reason that pellet stoves don't smoke so much is the fuel goes in the back. There's a door here on the top, and you put the fuel in once every other day, so you never open the door while it's burning. And that is one of the key differences in terms of indoor air. You never open that door, so the combustion is never in contact with your air. And you also have fans that suck out the smoke. So it's a fan assisted draft. Wood stoves are a natural draft, and the wood stove, the chimney is the engine that drives that stove and keeps the air moving through it for good combustion.
Great. And then we had some people curious about how fireplaces are comparable to wood stoves, pellet stoves. Specifically, they were wondering if you could achieve the same results as wood and pellet stoves and how significantly different those numbers are. I think they're talking about maybe in emissions, heating capacity, etc.
The short answer is no. There's so much air and air exchanges in a typical fireplace. Now, there are fireplace designs that are more of a parabolic reflector that do radiate quite a bit of heat out. They're modified Rumford designs. There's the Prior Fire that's out now. That's a very high efficiency fireplace, and ways of reshaping lintels so that they're ovalized, and the way that the air currents move through are changed. You can get a much smaller chimney, so you're not losing as much air. But any open fireplace, as it burns down in the night, even with glass doors on it, they still have to have some air coming through. They're going to leak air all night as it cools down. You can't just shut the damper. So open fireplace is never going to have anywhere close to the same ability to burn clean. That doesn't mean they'll smoke, though. They should not smoke into the house.
Great. And then someone asked, has EPA issued any warnings about carbon monoxide emissions from wood products stored indoors before burning? And they said, such as also recommending that pellets be stored outside. So do y'all know of any of EPA's announcements on warnings like that?
No, I haven't heard anything yet, so it's not something they're actively. They may be looking into it with the new standards coming up and so forth, and what they're working with through NESCOM and Brookhaven, doing some development and design work to look at other aspects. But right now, there's nothing official. I believe. I don't know if anyone from EPA is on here can voice their opinion, but as far as testing goes, we haven't seen anything that directly towards that.
In terms of pellets, the amount of pellets that the average homeowner has, it's safe to keep in your house or garage. Pellets at the industrial level, if you have a huge bin of pellets, that can produce carbon monoxide. So you wouldn't want 3 tons of pellets in an area that had absolutely no airflow. As long as you have normal airflow in a home, most people don't keep all their pellets in their home, but in your garage is fine.
Got it. And then also kind of on the carbon monoxide kind of train, someone asked if the speakers could comment on the diffusion of carbon monoxide through the walls of stoves and stove pipes as they overheat, especially when red hot. How big of a risk is this, and at what temperature does it start in flue pipes versus stove walls?
Anything that burns is going to produce some carbon monoxide. I'm not sure about, Ken might know technically when it's heated. I mean, at some point the paint's burning off, and that's going to create carbon monoxide. Not necessarily smoke leakage, carbon monoxide. Go ahead, Ken.
Sorry, I was I kind of missed part of that question. That was the I do apologize. I was
No,
reading
it's
another
okay.
question.
I might be
Yeah,
cutting in and out. The diffusion of carbon monoxide through the walls of stoves and stove pipes. How big of a risk is that, and at what temperature is it risky?
I think that they said when you start getting up higher temperatures, or 1,000 Fahrenheit, we're talking now the stove firebox itself has refractories and so forth. So really what you come down to is generally the chimney. If there is an issue, it would be through the chimney and the chimney manufacturers that they would look into. It's simply because just it's the easiest path to go through, and if it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen through there. It's not a significant something significant we address or look at the moment. I know that's not quite the answer of a yes or no, but that's generally I would look more towards chimneys and chimney manufacturers as a source to see if they've seen issues through that.
In overheating in particular, if you got a red hot stove and pipe, what are you up close to 1200 degrees or so? You're over that 1000.
Yeah, 1000 to 1200. Yes, you
So
shouldn't be up
any
running that high.
dust particles that are being drawn across it by convection, those are all going to have some level of carbon monoxide, and it also means the person's not burning the stove correctly. So get it back to correct, and I don't think you'd have a problem.
Yeah, we also do testing like for safety certification. We run it through, and it's 1000 Fahrenheit is kind of what you're shooting for as a maximum. That's like pushing it to its peak. So when we're designing stoves and we're running them through the safety compliance certification, that's what we look at. You're talking those numbers are starting getting to overfire situations, or you've got a serious problem. You've got breach in your system somewhere in the stove. An outdated stove or something like that that's happened. That's an indication of something's going wrong, and it's not normal operation, and that's when you need to reach out and find out if from your dealer or from the manufacturer. But yeah, definitely those numbers are not expected during normal operation. So
Great. And it's coming up on the end of our time here. Someone did ask though, where do you see the solid fuel industry headed in the next 5 to 10 years in terms of emissions in particulates? So I don't know if y'all want to each take a minute and try to sum up where you guys think that's going for emissions, what it's going to look like, regulations, etc., innovation. But go ahead, whoever wants to jump in.
I think Ken would have the clearest view.
yeah, so in the next couple years is for sure we have a new standard we're currently working on that's supposed to be out in about 2027 from EPA. This is an integrated duty cycle, so it's going to be a way to really kind of thoroughly evaluate the stove maybe more and look at real world applications. That's one way we're looking. So for us as designers, it's definitely technology. This is, not just mechanical technologies. We're looking into, electronics, new and improved ways to make the stove, perform better. So our future is not just tightening up the stoves like we have for decades, and that means just adding some kind of intuitive feedback, real-time feedback, and that would come into electronics would be one thing for sure. Catalyst placements, different kinds of catalysts and materials is definitely another way. Things that can be attached after the fact, like afterburners. Electrostatic precipitors is another thing they're looking at. It's all rolls down to new technologies, and we're going to have to innovate because emissions are going to be lower, efficiencies are higher. So that's the route we're all looking at, and I think you'll start seeing more and more of these in the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, I'd like
hopefully user friendly.
And Eileen, did you want to say anything else? I know a lot of your focus is on wildfire smoke, which is very pertinent and important. What about wood smoke in the home? Do you see it becoming more of an issue addressed or not?
Well, I think it depends totally on where you're located and what you can do. People are going to continue to burn. I mean, I work with tribes, and it is a cultural phenomenon. And I used to live in Vermont, and I had my wood lot I had 40 acres of woods, but 3 years out and it was dry. But it was also, it was my heat source. So I just want people to be really aware of the fact of how dangerous it is. I know it smells good and everybody, it has all those great memory and historical things that we attach to it, but it's also really dangerous. And whatever we can do, especially with children, to reduce their inhalation of it over time would be fabulous. It just, and also for anybody, most vulnerable. So, pregnant women, children, the elderly, anybody with a chronic health condition can be very affected by it. So,
Great, thank you. And I know our time is up. And there were a lot of good questions. Hopefully we may be able to answer some of those in the follow-up email everyone will get after the webinar. And other people did ask about contact information. I'll flash this up here as we kind of close out the webinar. You'll also get these in the follow-up email. But hopefully, thank you everyone for coming. Thank you, panelists. John, do you want to close it out officially?
Yeah, just extend my thanks as well. I do have one more announcement that Larry Brockman from the EPA requested, is that there's a national residential wood smoke workshop happening in Denver, March 11th to 13th. That's for states, local governments, tribes, and NGO. And if anyone is interested in attending that, you can contact johnson.danielle@epa.gov, or just contact us and we'll send you that email and put you in touch with them. This is happens every other year. It's a great event. And yeah, thank you all for coming. We hope to do more of these soon. And if you have a topic that you really think that we should be doing a webinar on, please let us know. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks.
thank you.
Thank you.
Well,